Okay, buddy. You ready for a little soft and silent daddy time? Until you really wake up? Okay, here we go. Are you ready? Once there was this little tiny boy. He was smaller than all the other boys. When he went to middle school, he was super excited because a new teacher was arriving. His name was Mr. Bologna. Yeah, his name was Mr. Bologna. Yeah, Mr. Bologna. People had said that Mr. Bologna was one of the best teachers ever. He even appeared on the Oprah Winfrey Show about 5 or 6 years ago, voted the best teacher in the nation. So the little boy was extremely excited to get a chance to learn from this amazing teacher. He was going to teach him English, he was going to teach him math and history and science. Above everything, the little boy wanted to learn more about science. He loved going for little trips into the woods. He loved going camping. He loved making fires. He loved roasting marshmallows with his daddy. He was so excited to learn more about science and how the world worked. He wanted to know why the sky was blue. He wanted to know why fire was orange, yellow, and blue all simultaneously. He wanted to know everything about the world. He wanted to know about the dinosaurs who lived before us. He wanted to know about the little tiny things in the water that currently lived. He wanted to know every single fish. Everything he wanted to learn about. He really liked earth science. Really liked it. So he was excited to learn about the constellations. He loved looking up at the stars at night outside with his daddy. Yeah, he did. He really, really did. He remembers getting his first telescope, and he couldn't wait to tell Mr. Bologna all about his first telescope that he got during the summertime with his daddy. Yeah, he was so excited to tell him about that. So one day, the beginning of school, everyone flocked into Mr. Bologna's class and sat down. The little boy was sure to be in the front row seat because he wanted to get Mr. Bologna's attention right away. So he sat right in the front seat, right in the middle. But unfortunately, when Mr. Bologna finally came in, he was all business. He was not, I repeat, he was not smiling. No, he was not smiling at all. Instead, he had a weird little frown, opposite of what you're doing right now. Yeah, he had a weird little frown and a little mustache and little tiny glasses. His ears were a little bit on the larger side, and he had a side part in his brown hair. He did not have cute and adorable cowlicks like you, little man. No, he did not. Instantly, Mr. Bologna put his books onto the desk, and he grabbed his attendance sheet and began rifling off the names of the students who were in the class to see who was present. And he wanted all the children to sit in alphabetical order at the desks. This did not excite the little boy because he knew his name ended with a Z. His last name started with a Z. And this meant he was going to be at the far back right of the class. That was where all the troublemakers usually sit, so they can have their trouble time and not pay attention and get away with things. But that's not what this little boy wanted. He wanted to be in charge. He wanted to know everything. He wanted to learn about the whole entire world. And in order to do that, he needed to be in the front row. But unfortunately, that didn't seem like it was gonna happen, did it? Mm-mm. When the teacher finally said the little boy's name that started with a Z for a last name, unfortunately, there was nothing the kid could do except go to the back of the class. But the little boy didn't just pout. He was a smart little boy after all, so he decided he still wanted to make an impression on Mr. Bologna. Normally the kids just say, here, present, yo, one of those sorts of things when the name got called. But he was going to make a different statement. So instead, when Mr. Bologna said the boy's last name, the little boy thought long and hard because he wanted to say the most perfect thing that he could say for Mr. Bologna to remember him. The problem was the little boy was a little unsure of what to say. And you know what happened? The little boy ended up saying nothing because he was too busy thinking of what to say. And because he was too busy thinking of what to say, he forgot to say anything. He mumbled something unintelligible. He could not even understand what he said himself. He had no idea what he said to Mr. Bologna, but it was very soft. And just barely did the fakeness of words come over and through and out of his teeth and lips. This forced Mr. Bologna to look up. He saw that there was no movement. He saw that there was no child there looking at him with his eyes. There was nobody saying anything or waving his hand or nothing. So Mr. Bologna said, absent on the first day. That's not a good way to start. Not in my class anyways. Uh-oh, SpaghettiOs. So now, the little boy started the worst possible way he could start. Instantly, as soon as Mr. Bologna said what he said, the little boy jumped up as quick as he could, as humanly possible. He jumped up. He knocked over his books. His book bag fell to the floor. The desk made that awful sound against the wooden floor, the tiled floor, excuse me. And everyone instantly looked up as if some earthquake was happening. As if there was a shattering, crazy, earth-shaking earthquake. But that wasn't happening at all. Instead, it was just a little boy freaking out because he missed his one opportunity to make the greatest first impression he could on Mr. Bologna. Well, Mr. Bologna, like all the other kids in the class, looked directly at the little boy, and the little boy could feel his little chubby cheeks going bright red with embarrassment. Oh my gosh, there must have been at least 30 pairs of eyes staring at him, wondering what was wrong with the little boy today. He was being crazy. The little boy raised his hand and said, in a nice little stutter, "Hi, Mr. Bologna. I'm here. Sorry. I didn't know what to say." And Mr. Bologna stopped him instantly. "We have no time for stutterers. Get to your assigned seat, and let's go to work. We got a lot to work today. We don't have time for these mini earthquakes. All right, get your seat." Boom. And that was it. The little boy sat down. He was so upset with himself. He picked up his books. He put them on his new desk. He put the backpack over the chair of his desk. Bless you. Bless you. And he finally sat down and looked up at Mr. Bologna. But Mr. Bologna had already started the lesson plan. His back was turned to him, and Mr. Bologna was already writing on the chalkboard. Unfortunately, the little boy had missed his chance and wondered what he would do in order to get Mr. Bologna to think that he was the smartest, greatest kid of all time. To be continued. If you like the story of Mr. Bologna, whee! That was chapter 1. Come back for chapter 2. Soon enough. I know the little man's excited for Mr. Bologna. You want to know what happens to Mr. Bologna, don't you? And the little boy whose name ends with a Z. Yeah, you're fearful for little Mr. Boy. Little boy with the name that starts with a Z, aren't you? So please, hit the thumbs up and subscribe if you like the story of Mr. Bologna. Thank you kindly.